We call it the parable of the prodigal son, and we think we know what it is about. A boy rebels, wastes everything, hits bottom, and comes crawling home to a forgiving father. A story about rebellion and its cost. But read it again, slowly, and you will notice that rebellion is not the engine of this story. Something quieter is. Something that keeps the boy in the pig pen long after the money is gone, long after he knows the way home. Not rebellion. Shame. And once you see that this is a story about shame, you cannot read it the same way again, because it stops being a story about someone else and starts being a story about you. We use the words guilt and shame as if they mean the same thing. They do not. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am something bad. Guilt is about an action. Shame is about a self. And that difference is everything, because guilt can be confessed and forgiven. But shame whispers that you are past forgiving, that what you did has become what you are. This is why the son does not come home when the money runs out. He has money problems and pig problems long before he moves. What keeps him in the far country is not a lack of directions. It is shame. The belief that the person he has become has no place at that table anymore. By the time we are finished, you are going to see the father in this story do something that no dignified man of his time and culture would ever do. Something scandalous. Something that cost him his own honor. And you are going to see that it is the exact shape of what God does with your shame. Not from a safe distance, but by running straight into it. Watch what the son does before he goes home. He writes a speech. I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Make me a servant. That is the voice of shame. Shame cannot simply receive. It has to earn its way back to a smaller, safer place where it will not have to be fully loved. So it rehearses. It negotiates. It offers to take the servant's quarters so it never has to risk the son's welcome. Now hold that speech in your mind, because the whole story turns on one Greek word for what the father does when he sees him. The text says, the father ran. Edramen. He ran. And you have to understand, in that world, a grown patriarch did not run. Running meant gathering up your robes and baring your legs like a child or a servant. It was undignified. It was shameful. The village elder does not sprint down a road, and this one does. Before the running, though, sit for a moment in the far country, because you have been there. Shame always moves in one direction. Away. Away from the table. Away from the people who knew you before. Away from the father's face. The son does not just lose his money in the far country, he loses himself in it. A Jewish boy feeding pigs, longing to eat what the pigs eat. The text is piling up images of degradation on purpose. This is what shame does. It does not just make you feel low. It walks you, step by step, into the lowest place you can imagine, and then convinces you that you belong there now. Here is what the running actually means. In that village, a son who had taken his inheritance early, who had, in effect, wished his father dead and squandered the family's name among outsiders, that son could expect to walk a gauntlet coming home. The village would have met him with scorn. There were even traditions of a public ceremony of rejection for a boy who lost the family's wealth to Gentiles. So the father runs, not out of sentiment. He runs to reach the boy first, to get to him before the village does, to absorb the scorn himself, to throw his own arms around the shame before it can fall on his son. The father takes the humiliation that belonged to the son and wears it down that road in front of everyone. And notice, he never lets the son finish the speech. The boy gets out, "I am no longer worthy to be called your son." And the father is already calling for the robe. The negotiation is cut off. Shame does not get to set the terms of this homecoming. Then come three things, and each one is a direct answer to shame. The best robe, and in that house, the best robe was the father's own. The son is not given a clean servant's tunic. He is wrapped in the father's honor, so that when the village looks at him, they see the father's status covering the son's disgrace. The ring, signet authority. Sonship restored, not probation. Not "we'll see how you do." Full family standing, pressed onto the hand that wasted the family's money. And the sandals, because servants went barefoot and sons wore shoes. Every one of these is the father saying out loud to a boy who came home planning to be a servant, "You will not be a servant here. You are my son. You were my son in the pig pen, and you are my son now." And then there is the older brother, and if you have been reading this as a story about one lost son, he will surprise you. He will not come in. He stands outside the celebration and says, "All these years I have served you, and I never disobeyed you, and you never gave me a party." Listen to that. Served. The same word the younger son rehearsed. The older brother has been living as a servant in his own father's house the whole time, earning, performing, keeping the ledger, certain that his place depends on never putting a foot wrong. That is shame too. Not the shame of the failure who ran away, but the shame of the achiever who stays and works, terrified that he is only as loved as his last performance. Two sons. Two kinds of shame. One runs to the far country to escape the father's face. The other stays home and hides behind his own record. And both of them are equally far from the father's heart. And here is the detail that breaks the whole thing open. The father goes out twice. He runs out to the younger son on the road. And then, when the older son will not come in, the text says the father came out again, out into the dark yard, to plead with him. He does not stand on his dignity and wait for either son to grovel back into favor. He goes out, to the one drowning in failure, and to the one hiding behind his success. The father leaves the celebration and steps into the cold, to reach the son who thinks he has earned his way and cannot understand grace. Whichever son you are tonight, the one who ran, or the one who stayed and seethed, the Father is already coming out to where you are standing. Underneath both sons is the same fear. It is the fear that if you were fully known, the real you, the far country you, the ledger-keeping you would be sent to the servants' quarters. That there is a version of you so disappointing that even the Father's house has a limit, and you have found it. That fear is as old as Eden, where the first shame put clothes of fig leaves on people who suddenly could not bear to be seen. And it is answered here, on a dusty road, by a Father who does not wait for you to become presentable, who runs at the first sight of you, who covers you before the village can speak. Because this is the thing the parable is quietly pointing at the whole time. The cross is the Father running. It is God gathering up His own robes and sprinting down the road into our shame, taking the scorn that belonged to us, wearing our disgrace in public, absorbing it into Himself before it could fall where it should have fallen. Hebrews says it plainly. Jesus, for the joy set before Him, endured the cross, despising the shame. He despised it. he counted it as nothing, next to getting to you. And the promise that hangs over the whole story is this, from Romans: no one who believes in him will be put to shame. The best robe is not a metaphor. It is the righteousness of Christ, laid over everything you were sure disqualified you, so that when heaven looks at you, it sees the Father's own honor covering the far country you. You do not come home to be a servant. You come home a son. You always were. If this changed how you see the story you thought you knew, subscribe. This is what we do here at Burning Hearts. We open the text until the thing hiding under it comes into the light, until your heart burns within you. Leave one word in the comments, the name of the far country you have been living in. Even one word helps push this to someone who needs it more than you know. And share it with someone who is standing outside the party. Sure, they have used up their welcome. May you hear tonight the sound of a father who is not waiting at the gate with his arms crossed, but who is already running down the road toward you, robes flying, before you have even finished your speech. God bless you.